Hi, I'm Tim Garland, and welcome back to the Seaboard Central Railroad in part two of the Realistic Ops series. Now, I'm here just studying the progress of the Gadsden Yard modules as they're under construction for the new layout. Gadsden Yard is going to play a major role when it comes to operations on the Seaboard Central. So, in part one, we talked about the rules governing the movement of trains over the new layout. And in part two, we're going to talk about developing a realistic operating plan. And I'm going to use prototype-based practices to develop the operating plan for the Seaboard Central. So if this sounds interesting to you, keep watching. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, I appreciate a thumbs up. So without further ado, let's get started. When it comes down to developing an operating plan, one of the first groups to get involved is the Service Design Department. Working together with marketing and transportation department leaders, Service Design will develop plans to either add a new train, update the train's route, or work that needs to be performed en route, or even in some cases eliminating a train and moving its traffic to another one. This actually happened a lot during the implementation of PSR, otherwise known as Precision Scheduled Railroading. One example on my territory is that at one time my district had two scheduled trains operating between Atlanta, Georgia and Rutherford, Pennsylvania. One departed Atlanta in the morning and one in the evening, and I had two counterparts that arrived in Atlanta at different intervals. These trains were generally about 8,000 foot long, but after PSR, now only one train operates in each direction, a monster 13 to 14,000 foot long train. On the Seaboard Central, PSR is not a cost-cutting move like that it is found on Class 1 carriers, but rather actually run into a set schedule. Trains are limited in length, so they actually fit in sidings, and they are timed to arrive at certain intervals to limit the chances of bogging down the yards or the main line. The next group that gets involved with the operating plan is the Transportation Planning Department. Transportation planning will help establish routing codes for each individual trip plan that a car must follow as it makes its way across the railroad. These codes are known as classification codes, and they're necessary for computer systems and crews to make sure the right car goes on the right train. More about classification codes later. So as the operating plan is developed for the Seaboard Central, there are a number of factors that will have to be taken into account. The first one being capacity. Can the current infrastructure handle the business? In the case of excess capacity, then the next questions would be, are there enough locomotives and crews available to perform the work? These are all questions that real railroads have to deal with on a daily basis. So let's look again at the Seaboard Central Railroad System map, and you'll note on this map that the larger cities are in larger letters. The cities like Savannah, Macon, Atlanta, and Birmingham, and these are generally where you have big interchanges with Class 1 railroads. In addition to these locations, there's an interchange with Norfolk Southern right here in Gadsden at Alabama City, and that's the same as the Birmingham interchange, where we interchange with CSX and BNSF in Birmingham. We do it with NS here. So this is important because you have two different, when it comes to traffic flow, you have two different types. You have online moves, which just stay on the Seaboard Central, and you have interline moves where another railroad is involved, and they have to go through one of these interchanges. So we have to keep that in mind when it comes to car movements over the Seaboard Central. All right, when it comes to the trains operating over the Seaboard Central, I came up with this unique way to number the trains. So the trains generally has either three numbers or one letter and two numbers. So here, if it's a 300 series number train, it's considered a unit bulk commodity train, like a unit grain train or a unit coal train. 400 series are just your general merchandise trains, and 900 series are the work trains. And then you have your switchers, like if it begins in the letter L, it's a local, T is a transfer job, and Y is a yard job. Now the second number in the train number determines where the train originates at. So for example, And this is basically east to west. So Savannah is 0, where Birmingham is 9. And here's all the different on-duty points where trains can originate between Savannah and Birmingham. So if you look at the map, Savannah was 0, Macon was 3, Griffin was 5. You have Carrollton is 6. Gadsden is right here close to this Atala. That's number 8. Birmingham's number 9. And this just helps identify where that train originated from. So in phase 1 of the layout, we're only going to be concentrating on this area right here from Gadsden over towards Birmingham. And we'll be dealing with Raglan, Alabama, which is located right in this area. So we're only going to worry about, this is phase 1. Phase 2, we'll cover all the way up to Carrollton. But for right now, we're just going to be talking about trains operating in this area. But here I do show eventually all the trains that will operate over the layout once the layout is complete. And you'll note that there's a couple of trains that operated on the old layout. Here's train 484. You can go back and look at some of the videos on the old layout, and you can see train 484 and 437, for instance, stopping and working at Griffin. And you can see these are trains that run between Gadsden and Macon, and they handle the Griffin traffic. There will be new trains, 480 and 409, that will handle the Carrollton traffic on the new layout. So you'll see them stop and work Carrollton between the staging yard and Macon and all the way up to Gadsden. Now here's where the plan gets a little more complicated, because I have to decide what times the trains are due to out or due to arrive into Gadsden. So since Gadsden Yard is going to play a major role, here's what I came up with as far as the operating plan. Now, it's a railroad, so this is just tentative, but if everything's running on schedule, this is how it should operate. So as you can see here, I've actually made a phase 1 West End operating plan, and this kind of goes a little bit further as far as showing all the trains I plan on operating in the phase 1 progress of the layout. And this shows, for example, a 6 a.m. job, Y81, is the yard job here at Gadsden, and it tells what it does. It lines up trains. This is responsible for classifying the cars in the yard. L83 is that local. It'll originate here in Gadsden and run up to Raglan and work at 8 a.m. and National Cement and then return. There's an NS job that shows up during the morning time. It brings interchange traffic from Norfolk Southern. And then you have these 2 trains that are just represent trains coming in from Macon and going back to Macon. That will show traffic that's heading east. Then you have the T85 is the transfer job that takes Birmingham traffic up to the Birmingham staging tracks. And then finally you have a Y86, which is a Gadsden switcher that works the industries in and around Gadsden. So it goes on duty at 4 p.m. So basically the same power that's used for Y81 will be used for Y86. And that's how railroads get the best utilization out of their equipment, as they try to schedule them this way. So finally, we're going to talk about classification codes and why they're important. Classification codes will change depending on where the car is in its movement over the course of its trip. So these are the classification codes unique to Gadsden. So this is for when a car arrives at Gadsden, it's going to pull one of these classification codes. This helps the crew on Y81 or Y86 to determine where to put the cars. If a yardmaster assigns a particular track for these particular cars, for example, if it pulls an ALA-CYNS, we know this is NS interchange traffic. So yardmaster will identify which track that they want the Norfolk Southern interchange traffic to go to. And that same thing goes for the BNSF and CSX Birmingham traffic that goes out on 285. Then you have a class code for cars going to Carrollton and Griffin and Macon. And so For example, it's pulling a Carrollton class code here in Gadsden, but once the cars arrive in Carrollton, they will pull an industry class code like these, which is an alphanumeric classification code. Basically, it's kind of like an address for the industry. So here at Gadsden, here are some particular industries. They begin in the letter A, and these are for example, there's a car repair services place here that we can do car repair. And the track supervisor here needs a car. A guy might show up coming off the Norfolk Southern of track equipment. We'll know where to send it. There's going to end up being a Cooper tire and rubber plant eventually that will receive cars like carbon black cars and tank cars and box cars. And then you have the these R class codes, which will be for going up to Raglan. There's the big ADM plant, and ADM ethanol is the tank cars. And then you have R50 as National Cement. So here's another angle of Gadsden Yard. And these two tracks right here on this is actually the main line, and this is a runaround or passing side, and these will be for Norfolk Southern moves. So you'll see the NS interchange job come off of these two tracks. And then these two tracks, this is track 1 and track 2, they're going to represent the Macon staging. So that 409 and 480 you'll see come off these two tracks. Track 3 is going to be inbound and outbound. And you can see, if you look, there's a crossover here, which will allow movements to come out through the freight lead. And this will, that way, the yard job can still be working, and you can have the mainline train coming out without interfering with that. And then you go into tracks 4, 5, 6, and 7, and on, all the way up to track number 12 eventually. And this will be how the cars, these are all stub-ended tracks, but they vary from about 9 car lengths to 12 car lengths long. So that way the yard master can determine which particular blocks to use to build the trains. And should be really fun to operate. So I'm so excited about getting this completed. And I know people that's been loyal to the channel will be looking forward to that too, to seeing trains operate in Gadsden Yard. So I hope that gave you a little insight on how I'm developing the operating plan for the Seaboard Central. And trust me, I'll go into more detail as time progresses, so you'll see how the Seaboard Central is operating. In part 3, we're going to actually talk about car forwarding and waybills, so be sure to tune in for that. So as always, I appreciate you stopping by and checking out the Seaboard Central. And until next time, thanks for watching, and happy model railroading, everyone.